Okay, welcome back to the second part on this sort of more realistic sized business table, which has 9,994 customer orders for various kinds of products, and also comes together with the quantitative data on sales, profit, and so forth, and all the different categories and subcategories of those products. Well, I'm just going to imagine that I had a manager, and the manager had said that they wanted something extracted from this, like some usable value. This is the raw data, so this is kind of what you mine down to get a customer at a time or an order at a time. So if you're in a customer services department and the phone rings, then you might need to pull up this exact order to track it, something like that. But whereas in a business meeting, it'll be more on the summary. You won't want to sit there with your manager and go through every single row, probably. Your manager will probably say, give me give me a summary of the sales in this period, or tell me which of these kinds of products is selling the best, this kind of thing. So let's imagine a question, and it's going to be quite a simple one. The question is going to be, I want to know the profit distribution. So there's lots of sales here, ranging from large negative numbers to large positive numbers. Probably the majority of items are quite small. So this, if you can imagine the distribution of those profits, is probably going to be some kind of bell curve, with the most items being the smallest values ones, and then the odd occasional items which either made a large profit or a large loss for the negative. So let's say your manager said to you, okay, I want to know the distribution of all those profits between, or losses between 100 and minus 100. And then we'll get an item for all we'll get an idea for all the small value items, what that profit loss distribution looks like. Well, the technical name for such a chart is a histogram, and the bins that you would sort the data into would be, let's say, at intervals of $10, from minus 100 to plus 100. And so you would then have a column plotted at each of those intervals, each of those bins, from minus 100 to plus 100. And if you plot two numbers in Excel, if you write two numbers in Excel and then drag it, it will complete the series. So it knows the gap there is plus 10, so it will just keep on plussing 10 for as long as you drag it down. So if you want to set up a range with a constant gap, it's quite easy. You only need to write the first two values, and then you can drag the rest of the range. So that in a histogram is called the bins, and then basically we're just going to get Excel to count how many items were there that made a loss between 100 and minus 90, or a loss between minus 90 and minus 80, up to profit 0 to 10, 10 to 20, and so on. And we're expecting a kind of bell curve, but the function is really very buried away. In order to speed up the software, Excel doesn't load with all of its possible mathematical functions. I already showed you all these formulas, but that's not the whole lot. There are more, and to add them, you have to specifically add them one at a time to your package. And it's under the File tab, Options, and then if you scroll down, there are all these different options which are various general kind of properties of the program. For example, how do things appear on the screen, and how is text formatted, and so on. And if you scroll down to Add-ins tab, then you'll see all these add-ins. So each of these is a more like labor-intensive, basically package of Microsoft functions, and you can get more add-ins from the internet. So for example, Analysis ToolPak contains lots of more advanced statistical methods. Solver add-in is for things like solving logistics problems, applying the constraints to work out how much stock to move between warehouses and customers and suppliers and this kind of thing. So I'm just going to add the Analysis ToolPak, and you'll need to go to Manage Excel Add-ons, Go, and then you just click OK. And then you'll see on the Data tab, over on the right hand side, there's now this pane for analysis. Previously that wasn't there. If you looked at your data tab before, you wouldn't have had this. And if you go back to File, Options, Add-ins, Manage Add-ins, if you was to uncheck it, that would disappear. If you click on it, you'll see you've got all these complex statistical methods, and basically they're all a bit labor intensive, so they don't come with the standard. It's an add-in and you have to actually select the option to run it. Okay, as usual, we've got an input range and various other options. There's nearly always, on any of these menus in Excel, there's nearly always some kind of input range, and it's almost invariably just your obvious data that you know you want. So in this case, it's U2 to U9995. It's nearly always just your column of data, that input. And then the bin range is just this technical term for histogram frequency distributions, and that's here. So V2 to V22. Do we want the labels? We'll see what that brings up. And then the output options, you can either output them as numbers to a specific place on the cell, or you can output them onto a new worksheet, which will be another one of these worksheets, or a new workbook, which will be an entirely new project, an entirely new file. So we'll just leave as it is, new worksheet. And then we've got these options of Pareto sorted histogram, that's quite technical, cumulative percentage, or chart output. I'm just going to select chart output, which is the basic frequency distribution, or histogram. If it was cumulative percentage, that would be a cumulative frequency distribution, but we just want the basic frequency distribution. And then you click OK, and you see here that you have a new page formed, sheet 1 it's called, and you have this frequency distribution, and that just gives you the number of profits from 0 to 10, from -10 to 0, from -20 to 10, and so on, from -100 to -90. And as expected, it's this kind of skew bell curve with a slight excess of items that are selling for a profit. There are more profit than loss. So overall, this business is making money. What about if we want to summarize text column? So let's take the subcategory, and the same kind of thing, we just ask a frequency question. Okay, so we've got all these kinds of subcategories, and they come up again and again, like appliances, or storage, and so on. And let's say we just want to literally know, out of all these 9,994 orders, how many of those sales are bookcases, how many are chairs, how many are labels, how many are tables. Now, this is a tricky method because there's not one step, it's a two-step method. And so I'm just going to wipe all these columns because I'm not going to need them again. And the two-step method is not something you'd immediately be able to work out. So this is the kind of thing where you may find there's certain points where you're actually really looking around for quite a long time to find something that's actually quite simple, and that can be frustrating. I'll show you this example, but it just gives you the example that there may be simple methods if you can find it, and it's not sort of, don't give up, just keep on maybe trying a few more until maybe you just find this really simple option, because you'll see on Google, to ask this question, you'll see all kinds of options come up, and some of them are really complicated and not what you need. So all we want to do is output how many bookcases, how many chairs, how many labels, how many tables. Well, the first part is basically going to select all the items individually. So we don't even have that. We can scan down this thing and you can get a feeling for the fact that there's quite a few different kinds of subcategory, but you can't immediately pull out exactly how many different kinds there are. That kind of question, how many different kinds of thing are there in this column? That you can solve by applying what's called a filter. And filters are on the data tab. We've already looked at the sort part, this sort and filter group. So we're asking a question, how many different kinds of certain things are there in a column? And it's a text column. For that, you'll apply a filter, and it's going to be an advanced filter. Okay, now this is wrong altogether. A1 to U995. No, we don't want that. We want this subcategory column. So we want P1 to P9995. So that's the first thing to get right. And the next, and notice you do include the header. That's, and again, it's just a rule. You have to know it. You might have thought, okay, I'll only search the data from row 2, but actually this specific menu requires the header to be the first item. It takes that into account. And then we can glance at these options. It says filter list in place. That will put the results on here. We don't want to write over our results, so we're going to copy to another location. Criteria are special Excel conditions that we're not going to need at this point. Copy to can be pretty much any cell that's blank, so we're going to put, and remember this is the name of the spreadsheet, orders, exclamation mark, and then that's the cell reference R1. And basically that will copy subcategory header to there, and then underneath it, it will list all of the items. There's this final option, unique records. Well, that's the key one actually. If you don't click unique records, what you'll get is just this entire column outprinted. So it will literally print every single item in this list range. So you'll just have the same column all over again. We don't want that. We want just the list of items, the different items or the unique items. So do the same thing again, copy to another location, R1, unique records, OK. So there you go, there's the different kinds of subcategories. It turns out there are 17 of them. And then the second part is to say, okay, so how many times does each of those appear in this list? And that's actually quite easy to solve. It can be solved with a function called CountIF. And if you look at the two labels underneath CountIF, you've got range and you've got criteria. Range is just the same range of the data. So this time you're going to actually type it from the second row, because this function only searches in the data itself, not including the header. And then criteria is the test. What thing are we looking for? Well, we're looking for bookcases. So we're going to count every instance of bookcases. If we find bookcases, we're going to count it. And then we're going to add up all the bookcases in this column. So the thing we're actually looking for is the thing in this cell. So I just click that cell, close bracket. And then this is already the formula. This will work. The first part tells you where to look. The second part tells you what to find, and the CountIF function will just add up 1 every single time it finds a bookcases. So if you press enter, you get the number of bookcases. And notice that the form of the function, the range to search in is with the constant symbols, but the thing to test doesn't have the constant symbols, the dollars. So this R2, if you drag the formula down, will change to R3, R4, R5. So it will be testing firstly the chairs, then the labels, then the tables, and so on. So if you drag that formula down, it will just do the count automatically. And if you want the shortcut, then you can double click using the left mouse button on that little square on the right bottom corner. And now you've got your frequency table for all those subcategories. And if you wanted to turn it into a chart, just go to Insert, Column, 2D Column, and there's your frequency chart. So you've got a categorical frequency chart, and you've got a quantitative frequency chart for profit, and you can edit those charts. And basically there are just infinite varieties. So as the conditions or the questions get more complicated, the methods will become more and more multi-step. There'll usually be a way to achieve what you want in a fairly small number of steps though.